Should a woman's body count matter to a man? Wow, we got a great topic that we're going to get into today. We're going to be talking about the body count of women and probably a little bit about men as well.
The reason why I don't care about a woman's past, a woman can say she had 25, 35 sexual partners. I don't care about all that. They don't intimidate me because I always say the version of her that I'm going to get, no man has ever had. Because I know how to cultivate that woman. Oh, boy.
You preaching.
I know how to provide something in your life that no man has ever been able to provide. True. I know how to extract and cultivate something out of you that no man has been able to cultivate out of you.
That's pretty much that. So I'm going to kick it off with you. What do you think about, first off, what do you think about what he said? And then what do you think about just the overall topic of a woman's past, their body count, all of that?
I'm going to be honest. My first thought was, and who are you? He is speaking about himself as if he can just, create in you a clean heart. Like, I'm just like, boy, hold on, calm down a little bit. So here's the thing. I agree that, from a Christian perspective, if you turn away from that previous lifestyle, saying, a woman, like she used to be very promiscuous, out there doing whatever, high body count, all of that, the numbers he said. And then, she's changed her life, she's given it to God, all the great things. And then she meets him, or a man like him. But he was just saying, like, none of that matters at all because of what he can bring out of her, things like that. And I'm like, that's nice, and that sounds fine. And I'm glad that he would still accept her. But I just think he was so focused on what he can do to make it so that those high numbers don't matter and her past don't matter. And so I'm like, yeah, but having a high number, the chance of getting an STI, right, that she might be taking some medicine for or something. But, he gonna make her new. He gonna do this, okay? The chances that she might have some kids from all those or abortions. And so if she don't have the kids, what she got? She got the scars from the abortions, meaning emotional scars, physical, things like that. So this is all that he's saying. He don't care about all that he's willing to take, okay? It's just a lot of things that you have to consider, which is why it's a huge conversation. Like, having a huge body count, being with somebody with that, especially if you haven't been with half as many people as that, maybe no one, things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I got to be careful because, I don't want to be mean. I've seen some content from the 𝙤𝙆𝙆𝙀 podcast that seemed good. They had the epic moment with the girl that her wig came off, which, shout out to the podcast for that because that moment was just so hilarious, right? So here's how I'm going to come at it. Let's start off Christian and work our way around this from that framework.
Okay.
Obviously, a woman's past from a spiritual perspective is behind her if she became born again and turned a new, completely different page. Like that's a given. If that's not the lifestyle that she's living and she is focusing on her healing, her growth in Christ, her growth mentally in her mental health, all of those different things, that should be the case for men as well. Body count in that case, 100%. I understand the heart behind saying it doesn't matter. It definitely doesn't matter spiritually. God isn't holding that against her. We shouldn't hold it against her as a follower of Christ. Now, here is the distinction. Here is the distinction that we have to talk about. This isn't about, as a follower of Christ, being qualified or disqualified because of the past prior to Christ. This is about how does that practically relate to how the woman is currently living and where they are in their life. Because you're just making a blanket statement and saying it doesn't matter how many. You can have 20, 30. Again, the average that a woman has in their life typically is about 7. And that's, even for someone like me, that sounds like a lot. But 7 is the typical average that a woman would have as far as sexual partners. So you're saying, 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 5 times the average. A woman is going, 5 times the average when it comes to body count. 1, that should alarm you in some sense. 2, I'm not saying that you should be insecure, but there are men that won't be comfortable with that, even from someone who has been born again, because you may not want a woman that's had that much experience, because with that much experience in sin, with that much experience in sex, there comes trauma. There comes a lot of unhealthy baggage and things that go along with that.
Yeah.
And those are things you can't neglect. So you have to throw 1,000 caveats. You can't just say, just because of the person you are, you could take that on. Because basically what you're saying is, hey, I like a challenge. I like someone who is a little rough around the edges, or who,
a little rough.
If I feel like that person is the one, I'm going to build her back up. I'm going to do all these things. I love, as a man that knows that he can really actually bring something to the table for a woman, because generally that's what women want anyway. But there's a lot of guys that women just allow to come into their lives, and they don't actually have nothing to bring to the table. They don't have nothing. They just, maybe looks, maybe sex, and that's it. But he's saying he got something that he could bring to the table that would make all the difference in that situation. I just think he probably is overselling it, and I think I think there's a lot of values that have to come together from that person, and there has to be a lot of transformation in how that person sees the world, how they view sex, how they view intimacy, all of those different things, and also their process in healing and therapy. Exactly. All of that has to be considered before you engage with a person that has a high body count. So for me, I'm not one to prescribe. I try to be careful with what advice I prescribe. I'm not an absolutist when it comes to advice generally, unless it's very like black and white type of things, or like in the Bible or whatever. But with a situation like this, you have to just use wisdom, men. You have to really see what you really feel God is calling you to do for that person. And if God isn't calling you to do those things, then you're better off just leaving her to Jesus. What girls we said, Jesus my boyfriend, Jesus my husband, all that cheesy, corny stuff. You better just let them stay in that season of life. Yeah. And they may have to be in that season very extended because of some of the experiences that they've had when it comes to that. And so,
and I read somewhere where they were saying how just because you're forgiven don't mean that there won't be consequences. Right. And I think that's huge here. It's like, yes, because I'm not insinuating that you shouldn't marry someone if you feel like that's the person God is, showing you that you need to marry or can complete you. And just because they have that high body count, man or woman. But what I'm saying is just know that stuff comes with that. Or they're dealing with those choices still, regardless of who you are. And that's what I mean by that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you're going to be dealing with the consequences of that in one way or another, whether it's sin struggles, whether it's trauma. God can deliver, but sometimes those things them habits that we built up, they die off hard. They take a lot of work. Now from the male perspective, and guess what? So some people be like, oh, like you see a lot with the male improvement stuff. Like, oh, they say it's okay for a man to have a high body count generally, and the woman can't. I get where that logic comes from, but I'll keep the same energy and say no one should desire anyone just off the bat with a high body count. But that shouldn't be the disqualifying factor either way. If the person has reformed, if they've maybe come to Christ and they're living it out and they're practicing Christian, not just Christian by name, things like that. So I would say even for the men, women should have the same standard. You shouldn't want a man with a high body count just off the bat. You should want a man that is closer to that average, maybe at the very least, at the most 7 in that. And anything over that, you should be very skeptical about that person, because we're talking about numbers that you develop over a lifetime. So, like, if you already are in the double digits with body counts, that person really needs to have reformed a lot of things in their life, and you really have to feel confident. Not just in the money they have in their pocket or what job they have and all these different things, but actually their heart. Where is their heart at? Where's their heart at with God? What are the values that they have? So
I agree.
Yeah, so those are our thoughts on this. We'd love to know what you all think. So make sure you leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. But before you head out, hit that thumbs up, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss on any videos that come out.